Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive all about diabetes.
hmm
And we're really going to focus on making this a great starting point for anyone who's maybe newly diagnosed or
Yeah,
suspects they might have diabetes, or even if you're just here to support a loved one who's dealing with it.
absolutely. And, it's something that we really should all be aware of because did you know in the
Yeah.
US, 1 in 10 adults actually has diabetes?
Wow.
And a lot of them don't even know it.
That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people. And so understanding it, even if you don't have it or you don't know anyone who has it,
Right.
is really important. And it can be really helpful in just kind of taking control of your health in general.
For sure. So today we're going to try to equip you with kind of a really clear picture of how diabetes works in the body.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about those early warning signs that maybe you should be looking out for,
hmm
and then some really practical first steps to take if you or someone you love actually receives a diagnosis.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. I mean, we need to kind of start by understanding what diabetes is in the first place,
Okay?
right? And I think the simplest way to think about it is it's basically a condition where your body has trouble regulating blood sugar.
Okay.
And a big part of that is because of problems with this hormone called insulin.
Okay. Insulin, I feel like this is something that we all hear about, but we don't really know, like, what it is.
Yeah.
So what exactly does insulin do?
So if you think of like the glucose in your blood as like the fuel
Yeah.
that your body needs to run, right? That comes from the food that we eat. Insulin basically the key that unlocks your cells and allows the glucose to get in.
Oh, okay. So it's like the delivery system.
It is the delivery system.
Okay, I got it.
Exactly.
So with diabetes, there's a problem with that delivery system.
Exactly. And there are different types of diabetes that affect that delivery system in different ways.
Okay, so that's where like type 1 and type 2 come in?
Exactly. Type 1 is an autoimmune condition where your body actually
Wow.
attacks the cells in your pancreas that make insulin.
So your body's kind of working against itself.
It is, and so it can't make enough insulin.
Okay.
Now, type 2 is a little bit different, it's more common.
Mhm.
And what happens there is either your body becomes resistant to the effects of insulin.
So it's like the key is there, but it doesn't really fit in the lock, right?
Exactly. Or your pancreas just can't keep up and it doesn't make enough insulin to begin with.
Okay.
And then there's another stage called prediabetes,
What?
which is like the warning stage where your blood sugar levels are higher than normal,
Mm-hmm.
but not quite high enough to be diagnosed with type 2 yet.
Okay, so it's like a yellow light.
It is, and a lot of times people with prediabetes can actually prevent or delay the progression to type 2 by making some lifestyle changes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's like a really important stage to catch it.
It
Got it.
is.
So essentially with all types of diabetes, we're dealing with the body not processing sugar the way it should.
Exactly.
So let's talk about like what that actually looks like in the body.
Yeah.
What are some of the effects that we're going to see?
So both in the short term and the long term,
Yeah.
high blood sugar can actually really affect your body's normal functions.
Yeah, because it's not just about having a sweet tooth. It's like it affects everything.
It really does.
It really does. Okay, so
Everything.
short-term effects, like when someone's blood sugar is out of whack, what are some things they're going to notice?
So one of the first things you're going to notice is probably fatigue.
Okay,
Because remember, we talked about glucose being the fuel for your body.
right.
So if your cells aren't getting enough of that fuel, you're going to feel tired and run down all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then another thing that happens is your body tries to get rid of that excess glucose in your blood.
Okay.
And it does this by flushing it out through your urine,
Oh,
which is why people with diabetes often experience increased thirst and frequent urination.
so that's why you go to the bathroom all the time.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Another one that's maybe a little less obvious is blurred vision. High blood sugar can actually affect the fluid balance in your eyes
Huh.
and make it harder to see clearly.
I've definitely had that, like the blurry vision, and just thought it was like eye strain.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
And then another thing that you might notice is slow wound healing
Okay.
because high blood sugar can interfere with your circulation
Yeah.
and it can also kind of suppress your immune system,
Oh, wow.
which makes it harder for your body to repair itself.
So it's like a domino effect. It's like one thing leads to another.
It really is.
Wow.
It's all connected.
So fascinating how something like sugar can have such a big impact on your body.
It really is. And these short-term effects are just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
If blood sugar isn't managed well over time, it can actually lead to some pretty serious long-term complications.
Yeah, we're going to get into those a little bit later.
Yes, definitely.
But first, I want to talk about what someone should do if they suspect they might have diabetes.
Yeah.
Like, what are the first steps?
So if you're experiencing any of those symptoms that we just talked about, the frequent urination, the excessive thirst, the unexplained fatigue,
Hmm.
blurred vision, slow wound healing, any of those things,
Yeah.
it's really important to talk to your doctor and get tested.
Okay, so if you're listening and you're like, huh, maybe that's me,
Yeah.
talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor.
What are some warning signs that we should be looking out for?
So some of them are the ones we just talked about, but also things like unexplained weight loss,
Okay.
especially with type 1,
Okay.
or increased hunger even after you eat,
Okay.
sometimes numbness or tingling in your hands or feet.
Interesting.
That's a sign of nerve damage,
Oh, wow.
which can happen when high blood sugar goes on for too long.
Okay, so it's not something to ignore.
Definitely not. And if you're experiencing several of these symptoms together, it's really important to get checked out.
Right, so it's about like being in tune with your body and being proactive.
It is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's say someone is diagnosed with diabetes. Where do they even begin?
Well, the first step is really to understand your blood sugar numbers,
Okay.
because that's going to help you and your doctor figure out the best way to manage your diabetes.
Okay, so how do they figure out their numbers?
So there are a few different tests that your doctor might recommend.
Okay.
One is the A1C test, which gives you like an average of your blood sugar over the past 2 to 3 months.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of gives you a bigger picture.
Okay.
Another one is the fasting glucose test,
Hmm.
which checks your blood sugar after you haven't eaten for at least 8 hours.
Okay.
And then they might also want to check your blood sugar after you eat
Oh, okay.
to see how your body handles food.
So it's kind of like different snapshots throughout the day.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So once you have all those numbers, then what?
Then you can start making a plan with your doctor to manage your blood sugar.
Okay, so what are some practical things people can do to manage their diabetes?
Well, one of the biggest things is making lifestyle changes. And I want to emphasize that these changes should be sustainable,
Yeah,
because we're not talking about like crash diets
right.
or crazy restrictions.
It's about making like a long-term plan, right?
Exactly. It's about finding things that you can stick with for the long haul.
Gotcha. So when we're talking about lifestyle changes, what kind of things are we talking about?
So the first thing is really focusing on what you eat.
Okay.
And instead of like cutting out entire food groups,
Yeah.
it's more about incorporating balanced meals
Okay.
with plenty of protein, fiber, and healthy fats.
Now, why are those things so important?
Protein and fiber help to slow down the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream,
Okay.
which helps to prevent those big spikes and crashes in your blood sugar.
Oh, okay. So it keeps things more stable.
Exactly. And then healthy fats are important for hormone regulation.
Okay.
And they also help you feel fuller for longer.
That's great.
So you're less likely to overeat.
So it's all about kind of managing those blood sugar levels.
It is. It
Okay.
really is all about that.
Right. Okay, so we've got diet. What else?
Exercise.
Okay, exercise, I feel like that's always the answer.
It's true, but for good reason.
Yeah.
It really does help.
Okay.
Again, it doesn't have to be like crazy intense workouts.
Right.
Just finding something that you enjoy and can stick with.
Okay, so like walking.
Walking, dancing, swimming, anything that gets you moving.
Yeah, just move your body.
Exactly.
Okay, so diet, exercise are the big ones.
They are.
Anything else that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, so medication is often a part of managing diabetes as well.
Okay, so talk to us about the different types of medications.
Yeah, so it really depends on the type of diabetes that you have
Okay.
and your individual needs. But for type 2 diabetes, a common first-line treatment is metformin,
Okay.
which helps to improve your body's sensitivity to insulin.
Okay.
And then for type 1 diabetes, insulin therapy is usually necessary
Okay.
because your body isn't making enough insulin on its own.
Gotcha.
And sometimes insulin therapy might be needed for type 2 as well,
Okay.
especially in more advanced cases.
So it just depends on the person.
It does.
Yeah, okay. So along with those lifestyle changes and possibly medication, what about the emotional side of things?
Yeah, that's a big part of it too.
I imagine that a diabetes diagnosis can be pretty overwhelming.
It can be,
Yeah.
and it's important to have a good support system. So don't be afraid to talk to your loved ones.
Yeah.
Let them know how they can help you.
Yeah.
And also, diabetes support groups can be a really great resource.
Okay.
Because you can connect with other people who understand what you're going through
Right.
and get advice and support from them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot today. We've
Huh.
talked about what diabetes is, the different types, recognizing those warning signs, and even what to do if you're diagnosed.
Yes.
So join us next time as we delve a little bit deeper into the long-term complications of diabetes.
Yes.
And what you can do to prevent them.
Looking forward to it.
See you then.
Welcome back. So last time we really dug into those different types of diabetes,
Right.
how it affects your body, what to do after you get that diagnosis.
Right.
So let's talk about those long-term complications
Yeah.
that can happen if your blood sugar isn't managed well.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that understanding these risks will help us and our listeners to really take those proactive steps.
Absolutely. I mean, knowledge is power.
It is.
And one of those common complications that's often overlooked
Yeah.
is nerve damage or neuropathy.
Okay, neuropathy. Now, what exactly does that mean?
So basically, when your blood sugar is high for a long time, it can start to damage those nerves
Okay.
in your body, especially like in your hands and feet.
So, like, what does that feel like?
So it can feel like tingling numbness, kind of like pins and needles all the time.
Oh.
Or you might have pain burning sensations, even muscle weakness.
And so you're saying this can be permanent?
Yeah, unfortunately, once the nerve damage is done, it's often permanent.
Oh, wow.
And that's why managing your blood sugar early and keeping it in a healthy range
Right.
is so important to prevent that from happening in the first place.
So that's nerve damage. What other long-term issues are we looking at here?
So another one is kidney disease.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Diabetes is actually a leading cause of kidney disease.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and basically what happens is that high blood sugar can damage the tiny blood vessels
Okay.
in your kidneys that are responsible for filtering waste out of your blood.
Oh, wow. So your kidneys are like constantly working.
They are.
And if they're not working properly.
If they're not working properly, then those toxins can build up in your body.
Okay.
And you can get really sick. And in some cases, you might even need dialysis or a kidney transplant.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got nerve damage, we've got kidney problems, anything else?
So another big one is heart disease and stroke.
Okay, so I've heard that connection, but I don't really understand how diabetes affects the heart.
So high blood sugar can actually contribute to the buildup of plaque in your arteries,
Okay.
which are the blood vessels that carry blood to your heart.
Okay.
And so when those arteries get narrow and hardened, it makes it harder for your heart to pump blood effectively.
Oh, okay. So the heart's working harder.
Exactly. And that increases your risk of heart attack and stroke.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what about vision? I know that diabetes can affect your eyes too.
It can, and that's because of a condition called diabetic retinopathy,
Okay.
which is basically when the high blood sugar damages the small blood vessels at the back of your eye.
So it's kind of like the same thing that's happening in the kidneys.
Exactly. And if it's not treated, it can lead to vision loss or even blindness.
Wow. Okay. So this is a lot of information, and it can sound pretty scary.
It can.
But I appreciate you breaking it down for us.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier to understand.
And the goal is not to scare anyone, but to just make them aware of the risks.
Yeah.
So they can take steps to prevent them.
Right. So I imagine that hearing all of this can feel really overwhelming for someone,
Yeah.
especially if they're newly diagnosed.
Especially if they're newly diagnosed.
So where did it even begin?
Well, it really comes back to those core management strategies that we talked about.
Okay.
Understanding your blood sugar levels, making those lifestyle changes, exploring your medication options, and building that support system.
So those are the things that can actually help prevent these long-term complications.
Exactly. And it's all about consistency.
Right.
Making those healthy habits a part of your daily life.
Okay, so let's talk about those healthy habits. Like when we're talking about diet, I know that that's a big one.
It is.
What are some key strategies for making healthy eating a sustainable part of life?
So it's really about finding that balance.
Okay.
Not about deprivation or crazy restrictive diets.
Okay.
It's about making healthy choices that you can actually enjoy and stick with.
So remind us again, what does a balanced diabetes-friendly plate look like?
So think lots of protein, fiber, and healthy fats.
Okay, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
But why are those things so important?
So protein and fiber help to slow down the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream,
Okay,
which prevents those big spikes and crashes in your blood sugar levels.
got it.
And healthy fats help you feel full and satisfied, so you're less likely to overeat.
Okay, so it's not just what you eat, but like the combination of things.
Exactly. And there's even a little trick you can try.
Oh.
Try eating your protein and fiber first,
Oh,
and then your carbohydrates last.
okay.
And that can help to further slow down the digestion of those carbohydrates.
Interesting. So it's kind of like creating a buffer.
It is.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and when it comes to specific foods to avoid, I would say instead of focusing on eliminating things completely,
Okay.
it's more about reducing your intake of processed carbohydrates and added sugars.
Okay, so those are the real troublemakers.
They are because they can really spike your blood sugar.
Okay, so like white bread.
White bread, sugary drinks, processed snacks.
Okay, all the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff.
Okay, so instead of those things, we're going for like whole grains, fruits, vegetables,
Exactly.
clean proteins, healthy fats.
Exactly.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
And the great thing is that making these changes
Yeah.
not only helps your blood sugar levels,
Yeah.
but it's good for your overall health, too.
So it's a win-win.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about diet. Let's talk about exercise.
Yeah.
For someone who hasn't been active in a while, where do they even begin?
Start small.
Okay.
Even a 10-minute walk a few times a day can make a big difference.
Okay, so it's about those small changes.
Absolutely.
Quickly,
As
yeah.
you get more comfortable, you can gradually increase the duration or the intensity.
Okay.
But listen to your body. Don't push yourself too hard too soon.
So it's a journey, not a sprint.
It is a journey, and find activities that you enjoy.
Right.
It doesn't have to be going to the gym if you hate the gym.
Right.
Find something that you like.
Okay, so like dancing.
Dancing, swimming, hiking, playing a sport.
Yeah, just move.
Just get moving.
Okay, and I know that strength training is also really important. Why is that?
So strength training helps you build muscle,
Okay.
and muscle actually helps your body use insulin more effectively.
Wow.
So the more muscle you have,
Yeah.
the better your blood sugar control can be.
Oh, that's great to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got strength training, we've got our cardio. Anything else that we should be thinking about in terms of lifestyle?
So sleep is really important.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
But when you don't get enough sleep, your body actually becomes more resistant to insulin.
Oh, wow.
So aim for like 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep every night.
So sleep is just as important as diet and exercise.
It is.
Wow, okay. And I know that stress can also play a role?
It can, because when you're stressed, your body releases hormones
Okay.
that can raise your blood sugar.
Oh, wow, so it's all connected.
It really is.
So finding ways to manage that stress is important.
Very important.
Okay, so what are some good stress management techniques?
Things like deep breathing, meditation, yoga, spending time in nature,
Okay.
anything that helps you relax and unwind.
Yeah, find what works for you.
Exactly.
So it's really about this holistic approach to managing diabetes.
It is. It's
Yeah.
not just about the physical stuff. It's about the mental and emotional stuff, too.
And we have all of these tools that we can use to manage it,
We do. And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
right?
Your healthcare team is there to support you.
Yeah, so utilize those resources.
Absolutely.
And I want to touch again on medication,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of remind people what we talked about.
Yeah,
Because I know it can be a little bit confusing.
it can.
Yeah, so for type 2 diabetes, metformin is often that first-line treatment.
Yeah, that's usually the first thing that doctors will try.
Okay, and how does metformin work?
So metformin helps to improve your body's sensitivity to insulin.
Okay,
So it helps the insulin that you're already making to work better.
okay.
And then there are other medications as well that work
Yeah.
in different ways. Some of them help your pancreas to produce more insulin,
Okay.
and some of them slow down the absorption of sugar from your food.
Okay, and then what about type 1 diabetes?
So for type 1 diabetes, insulin therapy is really essential.
Right, because your body's not making insulin.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there are different types of insulin that work at different speeds and last for different amounts of time.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's very specific to the person.
It is.
Yeah, so working with your doctor to find the right medication is super important.
It is. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
And really advocate for yourself
Yeah.
because it's your health and you need to be involved in those decisions.
Okay, so we talked about medication, we talked about lifestyle changes.
Mm-hmm.
We also talked about building a support system,
Yes.
and I think that's really important.
It's super important.
So what are some tips for actually creating that network of support?
So first of all, don't be afraid to talk to your loved ones.
Right.
Let them know that you've been diagnosed with diabetes
Yeah.
and let them know how they can help you.
Right.
Whether it's helping you make healthy meals or just being there to listen.
It's about having those people in your corner.
Exactly. And those diabetes support groups that we talked about,
Yeah.
those can be really helpful too.
Okay.
Because you can connect with other people who are going through the same thing.
Right.
And you can learn from each other's experiences.
Yeah, and there are also tons of online communities
There are.
that can provide that support as well.
Absolutely.
So it's great to know that there are so many resources out there.
There are.
So we've talked about the long-term complications, the different ways to manage diabetes.
Yeah.
What is the key takeaway that you want listeners to remember?
So diabetes is a serious condition.
Right.
But it doesn't have to define you.
Okay.
By understanding it and embracing those healthy habits.
Right.
You can live a long and healthy life with diabetes.
It's about taking control
It is.
and not letting it control you.
Exactly.
And it's never too late to start.
It's never too late.
So even if you haven't been managing it as well as you could have,
Uh-huh.
you can still make positive changes today.
Absolutely. Every step you take in the right direction is a step towards a healthier future.
That's really encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
So for those listening who might be feeling overwhelmed or discouraged,
Yeah.
just remember that you're not alone, and it's never too late to take control of your health.
Absolutely.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive on diabetes. We've talked a lot about like the nuts and bolts of it,
We have.
how it affects your body, all of that. But I think it's really important to address the emotional side of living with this condition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can be tough, right? You're dealing with a chronic illness that requires a lot of management and attention.
Right. And I think, it's easy to focus on the physical stuff,
Yeah,
like the blood sugars and the diet and all of that.
right.
But the emotional impact can be huge.
It really can.
So let's talk about that. What are some healthy ways that people can cope with these challenges?
So I think one of the most important things is to just acknowledge those feelings.
Okay.
Don't try to bottle them up or pretend that they're not there.
Right.
Talk to someone you trust,
Okay.
whether it's a family member, a friend, a therapist,
Yeah.
a support group.
Right.
Just sharing your experience with someone who understands can make a world of difference.
Yeah. It's so much easier to carry a heavy load when you have someone to share it with.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
Whether you need practical support with things like meal planning
Yeah.
or just someone to listen to you vent.
Right.
Reach out to your support system and let them know how they can help you.
And I think those support groups that we've talked about can be really valuable in this regard.
They can be so helpful
Yeah.
because you're connecting with other people who truly get it.
Right. Who are going through the same thing.
Exactly. And there's just a lot of power in that shared experience.
So it's not just about coping, right? It's
No.
also about thriving with diabetes.
Absolutely.
So how can people shift their mindset from simply managing the condition
yeah.
to actually living their best life?
I think it starts with focusing on what you can control
Okay.
rather than dwelling on the things that you can't.
So taking ownership,
Yeah, taking ownership, making those healthy choices that we've talked about,
right?
and being proactive about your health.
So it's about empowerment.
It is. It's about realizing that you have the power to make a difference in your own life.
And education is a big part of that, right?
Absolutely. The more you know about diabetes,
Yeah.
the more confident you'll feel in managing it.
Okay, so read books, talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
Do your research,
Exactly.
be your own advocate.
Be your own advocate.
And I think setting goals can also be really helpful.
It can.
Yeah, whether it's like running a 5K or trying a new recipe,
Yeah.
or just aiming for consistent blood sugar control.
Right.
Having something to work towards can be really motivating.
It keeps you engaged, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment.
And even those small victories
Yeah.
can add up to big changes over time.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important message to remember.
So to wrap things up, what is like the main thing that you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
Diabetes is a serious condition,
Right.
but it doesn't have to define you.
Yeah.
There's a whole community of people out there
Yeah.
who are ready to support you.
Okay.
And with the right knowledge and support, you can absolutely live a full and happy life.
So reach out, connect, keep learning.
Yes.
We're all in this together.
We are.
If you've been diagnosed, don't panic.
Start with small steps today.
And if you think you might have diabetes, get tested and take control of your health.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into diabetes. We hope you learned something new and feel empowered to take charge of your health. And we'll see you next time.